I was warned not to buy a Cooking Mama Cookstar, but I did it anyway. I bought the physical PS4 version because it was dirt cheap on the internet, and well, I still feel cheated and hard done by. This is a review of the PS4 version, and why it's got some weird janky charm, but also why it's fundamentally an absolutely terrible game. In Cooking Mama Cookstar, you have 50 different recipes that you can make. In traditional mode, which includes meat, or you can go down the vegetarian mode, which removes the meat and usually adds in some vegetables as well. This does mean that you'll have slightly different instructions for each of the recipes in each mode, but it seems like the traditional mode is slightly harder because the meat often requires extra cooking mini games, and so you actually get more bang for your buck by eating the meat. In the game itself, each recipe is broken down into loads of tiny little mini games. Some of them are over in literally 5 to 6 seconds, some go on for 20 to 30, but they all require you to do something with your controller within a couple of seconds, and you've got really tight time limits to be able to do it in. Failure is usually not being able to either A, get everything done within the time limit, because at least very early on in the game when you're learning the controls, it's not very fast or intuitive to tell you what to do next. But B, and more likely the cause, is that some of the controls are trying to tell you to do things gently or slowly, but the control inputs are largely binary, so it's either going to decide that you've hit something too fast and then like an egg explodes, or you toss loads of ingredients out of the bowl and onto the table, or particularly in grating games where it's using the touchpad, it just goes, no, too fast, no, too fast, and then you'll do the same thing again, and then you'll realise that you're going too slow for the timer, and there doesn't seem to be a particular consistent approach to how this all works. Gradually over time you start to understand some of its weird idiosyncrasies of the controls, and you just continue on regardless, either aiming for 1, 2 or 3 stars to complete your menu. The problem with a lot of this is that aside from unlocking some extra Cooking Mama customizations, there's nothing to stop you just doing 1 star for the lot, and you'll still get a new item to play with or a new menu to make, and you don't actually see any difference to your end result. So you can make the best sandwich or curry or pizza possible and get 3 stars across the lot, and it will look identical to the one that's got 1 star that you've burnt, thrown on the floor, exploded everywhere, chopped up your fingers instead of the peppers and the salami or whatever. It doesn't matter, it's all still the same at the end. So you kind of think, what was the point there? You're literally chasing stars on a screen. The problem with all of these controls and the inconsistencies and all of that then feeds into the fact that all of these mini games are so bitty and small that the game feels really, really chopped up into tiny little pieces, almost like you've cooked it that way. And so you never really feel like you're into a flow of anything with Cooking Mama Cookstar. And whilst the graphics I thought were quite nice, especially when you see some of the cooked stuff at the end, and the fact that you get to plate it, take a picture, add some stickers on should you really want to, I quite like that idea of it. It looks decent at the end, but everything is very Nintendo Wii-ish early on when you're actually preparing a lot of the ingredients as you go through the game. A lot of stuff is reused very quickly as well, and whilst it does give lots of different mini games within making a recipe, they come around quite quickly, and so you'll be redoing the same types of things but with just different ingredients over and over and over again. In single player mode, all you'll be doing is moving through these 50 recipes, trying to get 3 stars on them where possible. It's very difficult for some of those recipes to get 3 stars on, because anything that involves either throwing around the controller, like as if you're tossing vegetables or something in water, or anything that involves the touchpad, such as grating cheese, wasabi, whatever, and particularly with cracking eggs, because it wants you to do things slowly, but then you doesn't seem to understand speed or force on the analog stick. These are the ones which I constantly fell down on over and over and over again for no particular rhyme or reason. And so I just gave up and was like, fine, I'm just going to 2-star you, I've had enough. Outside of those 50 recipes, there are 10 mini games that you can have in a 2-player mode. These are things like reusing mini games to see who can do things fastest, squirting some pizza sauce around somewhere. There's a cute one where you get to one person play as a hammer and another one as a clove of garlic, and you have to try and smash each other. But they, like Bishi Bashi Special, outdone all of these mini games 30 years ago. There's nothing here that's going to warrant you coming back for more than 2 or 3 minutes per mini game maximum. And so it's really an afterthought and an addendum, not really a mode that you'd want to buy the game for. Last but not least, Cooking Mama's actual voiceover is horrific. It sounds terrible, it repeats over and over very, very quickly. And indeed, the entire experience does feel like the game wants to fall over on itself, particularly when you start getting to the results screen and it's telling you how well you did. There's noticeable slowdown in the menus, and I was kind of like, is this game going to crash? And I kept on trying to save all of my footage, thinking it was going to crash any moment. It never did, but yeah, it just feels like a game that just can't cope with itself as well. And when you combine that with the weird way how the controls work, the weird structure of 10 to 15 second mini games followed by 4 to 5 seconds of loading constantly over and over and over again, it feels like a very disjointed, bare bones experience that doesn't really know what it wants to offer, and hasn't offered anything different since the DS and the Wii games earlier on, which arguably do things with better precision and better utilisation of the controller that you have to your hand. A real shame. I feel like the Cooking Mama series is always on the verge of about to do something great, but it's been lost in the wilderness for some time, and it's almost like the jokier version of, say, where the Super Monkey Balls games have kind of gone, where it started off really, really great and an interesting experience and then has devolved into this horrific shambles. At least that series is starting to get itself back on track again. Cooking Mama, God knows what's going to happen for this series next. But it'll be a real shame if this is its signing off point. It deserves a good, proper, engrossing final hurrah. Written review will be over on highplanegames.com. I stupidly bought this on PS4 physically. I don't recommend you doing the same. Bye.
Higher Plane Games is part of the Higher Plane Network, a completely independent media outlet supported by people like you. The goal is to create the best possible content that cultivates a richer indie scene for games as well as music and entertainment. To find out more and to get involved, visit patreon.com/Higher Plane Network. Your support makes all the difference, and in return you'll gain access to bonus content and downloads. Thank you for watching.